And my name is Eden, and I'm 34 years old. It was just another Tuesday morning when I answered my husband's ringing phone while he was in the shower. Instead of a client, I heard a woman's soft voice whisper intimate details about their night together. "Michael, last night was amazing. I can still feel your hands on my body." Those words shattered my reality, revealing that my 8-year marriage had been built on lies. What I didn't know then was that answering that call would eventually lead me to a strength I never knew I possessed. If you're watching this, drop a comment letting me know where you're from. Hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted. Now let me take you through the journey that began with one devastating phone call. Michael and I met 10 years ago during graduate school at Boston University. I was pursuing my master's in art history while he was completing his degree in architecture. We first crossed paths at a campus coffee shop where I accidentally spilled my latte on his detailed building sketches. Instead of being upset, he laughed and said it added organic elements to his design. That was Michael, always charming, always able to turn any situation into something positive. With his tall frame, dark wavy hair, and confident smile, Michael turned heads wherever we went. He came from a wealthy Connecticut family. His father was a prominent real estate developer, and his mother a former debutante who now chaired several charity boards. I, on the other hand, grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in western Massachusetts, the daughter of a high school English teacher and a nurse. My parents had instilled in me a strong work ethic and appreciation for the arts, but they couldn't provide the connections or financial support that Michael's family took for granted. Despite our different backgrounds, we fell deeply in love. Michael said he admired my passion and determination. When I talked about my dream of owning an art gallery that would showcase emerging artists, he would listen for hours, helping me refine my vision. After graduation, he accepted a position at a prestigious architecture firm in Boston, while I worked as an assistant curator at a small gallery, saving every penny toward my dream. We married 2 years after graduation in a beautiful ceremony on Cape Cod. It wasn't as lavish as his mother would have preferred, but it was perfect for us. Michael's wedding gift to me was a business loan to open my own gallery. "I believe in you," he said, as he handed me the check. "This isn't charity, it's an investment in us." With his support, I opened Eden's Vision in Boston's South End, a gallery dedicated to highlighting new artistic voices. For the first few years, life seemed perfect. We bought a brownstone in Beacon Hill that Michael lovingly restored, maintaining its historic character while updating it with modern amenities. My gallery slowly gained recognition in the Boston art scene, and Michael's career flourished as he became known for his innovative, sustainable designs. We traveled, entertained, and built what everyone saw as an enviable life. But about a year ago, subtle changes began to appear in our relationship. Michael started working later, often coming home after I was already asleep. His phone became an extension of his hand, and he would step out of rooms to take calls. When I asked about these calls, he would wave them off as work emergencies or difficult clients. Sometimes he would be gone entire weekends for what he called site visits that couldn't be rescheduled. I noticed other changes too. Michael became more critical of little things, the way I dressed, how I managed the gallery, even how I loaded the dishwasher. Our intimacy decreased, with Michael often claiming exhaustion from work. When we did make love, it felt mechanical, as if he was going through the motions rather than connecting with me. We had been trying to start a family for the past 2 years without success. After several doctor visits, we learned that while both of us were physically capable of having children, stress might be affecting our chances. Michael seemed almost relieved at the diagnosis, suggesting we take a break from trying. "The timing isn't right," he would say. Let's focus on our careers for now. I reluctantly agreed, though the maternal yearning didn't subside. My best friend Sophia, who I'd known since college, was the first to voice concerns about Michael's behaviour. During our monthly wine nights, she gently suggested that his pattern of absences and secretiveness raised red flags. "I'm just saying, Eden, if Mark was acting this way, I'd be asking questions," she said, during one such evening. I defended Michael, attributing his distance to work pressure and our fertility struggles. "He's just coping differently than I am." I insisted, though a seed of doubt had been planted. Still, I was committed to making our marriage work. I planned special date nights, tried to take interest in his projects, and even suggested marriage counselling. Michael dismissed the idea of therapy as unnecessary. "We don't need a stranger telling us how to communicate," he said. "We're just going through a rough patch. It happens to everyone." I tried to believe him, to silence the growing whispers of insecurity. After all, Michael was my husband, my partner, the man I had chosen to build a life with. If I couldn't trust him, what did that say about my judgment? So I pushed down my concerns and focused on being the supportive, understanding wife I thought he needed. Looking back, I realize I was trying to make myself smaller to accommodate his growing distance, a pattern that would soon become unsustainable. The morning that changed everything started like any other Tuesday. I woke up early as usual to prepare for a meeting with a potential new artist at the gallery. Michael was still asleep when I slipped out of bed to make coffee. Our kitchen, with its white marble countertops and state-of-the-art appliances, was my favourite room in the house, especially in the morning when sunlight streamed through the large windows. As I was whisking eggs for an omelette, Michael stumbled in, his hair dishevelled and eyes heavy with sleep. He mumbled a greeting, poured himself coffee, and immediately checked his phone, frowning at whatever he saw on the screen. "Important message?" I asked, trying to keep my tone light despite the familiar pang of suspicion. "Just Wilson being paranoid about the Henderson project presentation today," he replied, not looking up from his phone. Wilson was Michael's business partner, and the Henderson project was a major office complex they were designing downtown. "That's today. I thought it was Thursday," I said, sliding a plate of food in front of him. Michael took a quick bite and shook his head. "No, definitely today. That's why I need to head in early." He checked his watch. "Actually, I should get moving. I need to review some changes before the clients arrive." He seemed unusually nervous, constantly checking his phone and barely touching his breakfast. I noticed a slight tremor in his hand as he brought his coffee cup to his lips. "Are you okay? You seem on edge." "I'm fine," he snapped, then immediately softened his tone. "Sorry, just stressed about this presentation. There's a lot riding on it." I nodded, accepting his explanation, even as doubt gnawed at me. "I understand. Is there anything I can do to help?" "No, I've got it under control." Michael stood abruptly. "I'm going to shower. Can you make sure my blue tie is ironed, the one with the subtle pattern that you gave me for Christmas?" "Sure," I agreed, clearing his barely touched plate as he hurried toward the bathroom. I heard the shower start as I retrieved his tie from the closet. When I returned to the kitchen, Michael's phone was sitting on the counter screen, lit up with an incoming call. The number wasn't saved as a contact, but something about it looked vaguely familiar. Without thinking too much about it, I answered, assuming it might be the Henderson clients calling about the meeting. "Hello, Michael's phone," I said in my most professional voice. There was a pause, then a woman's voice, soft and intimate, whispered, "Michael, last night was amazing. I can still feel your hands on my body. I keep thinking about how you pushed me against the wall in that hotel room and—" She continued with explicit details that made my blood run cold. My hand began to shake so violently, I nearly dropped the phone. "This isn't Michael!" I managed to say, my voice barely audible over the roaring in my ears. "This is his wife." Another pause, longer this time. "Oh my God," the woman finally said, her whisper giving way to normal volume. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I thought—" "Who is this?" I demanded, fighting to keep my voice steady. "It's Amanda," she replied, sounding genuinely shocked. "Amanda Winters. I work with Michael at the firm. Amanda Winters. The name clicked into place immediately. Michael had mentioned her several times over the past year, a talented new designer who had joined the firm. He'd even pointed her out at the company Christmas party. Tall blonde, probably 10 years younger than me. I remembered thinking she looked at Michael with obvious admiration. Now I understood it wasn't just professional respect. "How long?" I asked, surprised by the calm in my voice despite the storm raging inside me. "Eden, I'm so sorry. I didn't know he was going to answer." Amanda started evading the question. "How long?" I repeated each word sharp as glass. 8 months, she admitted quietly. "But he told me things weren't good between you. He said you were separated in all but name, that you were just keeping up appearances." The bathroom door opened and Michael emerged with a towel around his waist, hair still dripping. He froze when he saw me holding his phone, the colour draining from his face. "Who called?" he asked, his casual tone betrayed by the panic in his eyes. "Amanda," I replied, watching him flinch at the name. "She wanted to tell you how amazing last night was, especially the part where you pushed her against the wall in your hotel room." Michael's expression cycled rapidly through shock, guilt, and then calculation. "Eden, I can explain. It's not what you think." I laughed, a harsh sound that surprised even me. "Really? Because Amanda was pretty specific about what happened last night while you told me you were working late on the Henderson presentation." "It was a mistake," he said, taking a step toward me. "A stupid one-time mistake. I've been under so much pressure lately and things between us have been strained. I was weak, but it didn't mean anything, I swear." "A one-time mistake," I repeated incredulously. "Amanda says you've been seeing each other for 8 months. Michael's face hardened. "She's lying. It was just a few times. She's become obsessed with me, calling all the time. I've been trying to end it." "Stop lying," I shouted, surprising both of us with my volume. 8 months, Michael, 8 months of coming home to me, sleeping in our bed, planning our future, all while you were with her. "Lower your voice," he hissed, glancing toward the windows, as if concerned the neighbours might hear. "Let's discuss this rationally." Rationally. I felt hysteria bubbling up inside me. "You want to have a rational discussion about how you've been fucking your co-worker for 8 months while I've been trying to save our marriage." Michael's expression changed, then anger replacing the fake contrition. "What marriage, Eden? We've been living like roommates for years. You're always at the gallery. When was the last time you asked about my day without checking your phone every 5 minutes? When was the last time you initiated sex?" I stared at him, stunned by his attempt to shift blame. "So, this is my fault I work hard at the gallery because it's important to me, just like your work is to you. And maybe I'd initiate sex more if you didn't come home smelling like another woman's perfume half the time." He scoffed. "You're being dramatic. This isn't some Lifetime movie." "No, it's my life." I grabbed the nearest object, a coffee mug he'd given me for our anniversary with "To my perfect wife" inscribed on it, and hurled it against the wall where it shattered satisfyingly. "Our life, the one you've been destroying while I've been making excuses for you to everyone, including myself." Michael's face darkened. "You need to calm down. We can work through this if you stop acting crazy." "I'm not crazy for being upset that my husband has been cheating on me," I screamed, tears finally breaking free. "Get out. Get out of this house right now." "You can't kick me out of my own house," he said coldly. "My name is on the deed too." "Fine," I said, grabbing my purse and keys. "Then I'll leave." Michael's demeanour suddenly changed, panic replacing anger. "Eden, wait. Don't go. Let's talk about this. I'll end things with Amanda, I promise. It was a mistake." But I was already heading for the door, unable to stand another minute in his presence. As I reached for the doorknob, Michael grabbed my arm. "You're overreacting. Where are you even going to go?" I wrenched my arm from his grasp. "Don't touch me, and don't worry about where I'm going. Worry about where you'll be when I get back, because it better not be here." As I walked out the door, I heard Michael kick the wall and curse. The last thing I heard him say before the door closed behind me was, "This is such bullshit." I sat in my car for several minutes, hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white before I finally allowed myself to break down completely. After leaving the house, I drove aimlessly through Boston's streets, tears blurring my vision as the magnitude of Michael's betrayal washed over me. Eventually, I found myself parked by the Charles River, watching joggers and cyclists pass by living their normal lives while mine had just imploded. I called the gallery to say I wouldn't be inciting a family emergency. Then I just sat replaying the morning's events and everything that had led to this moment. How could I have been so blind? The late nights, the weekend site visits, the emotional distance, all the signs had been there, but I had chosen to ignore them to make excuses for the man I loved. My phone buzzed repeatedly with texts and calls from Michael, which I ignored. After an hour of sitting by the river, I finally called the one person I knew would understand, Sophia. "I need you," was all I could say when she answered. "Where are you?" she asked, immediately, no questions, just support. I gave her my location, and 20 minutes later, her red Mini Cooper pulled up beside my car. She took one look at my tear-stained face and enveloped me in a hug. "Michael's been cheating," I managed to say before dissolving into sobs again. "Oh, Eden," she whispered, holding me tighter. "I'm so sorry." We sat in her car as I recounted the morning's events. Sophia listened without interruption, her expression darkening as I described Amanda's call and Michael's reaction. "I suspected something wasn't right," she admitted when I finished, "but I didn't want to say anything without proof. I didn't want to hurt you." "You knew?" I asked, a fresh wave of humiliation washing over me. "No, not knew," she clarified quickly. "I just had a feeling he's been different lately, and there were a few times when things didn't add up, like last month when he said he was at that conference in New York, but Mark saw him at a restaurant here in Boston." I felt sick. "Why didn't you tell me? Mark wasn't sure it was him, and I didn't want to upset you without being certain." Sophia explained, regret evident in her voice. "I should have said something. I'm so sorry, Eden." I nodded, too exhausted to be angry with her. "What do I do now?" "First, you're coming to stay with me. You shouldn't be alone right now," she said firmly. "Second, we're going to secure your finances before Michael does something stupid." She was right. If Michael was capable of betraying me so thoroughly in our marriage, there was no telling what else he might do. Together, we drove back to my house, relieved to find Michael gone. Sophia stood guard while I packed essentials: clothes, toiletries, important documents, and irreplaceable personal items like family photos and my grandmother's jewellery. As I moved through the house, I noticed things I hadn't before. A bottle of unfamiliar perfume tucked behind my fragrances, in the bathroom hotel keycards, in the pocket of a suit jacket. Receipts for dinners, and gifts I never received. Each discovery was like a fresh wound, evidence of a secret life Michael had been living parallel to our marriage. In his home office, I found a stack of credit card statements he had apparently forgotten to shred. Scanning them, I saw charges for hotels, restaurants, and jewellery stores on dates when Michael had claimed to be working late or out of town. One charge in particular caught my eye: a significant payment to a rental property management company dated just 2 weeks ago. Was he planning to leave me? Had he already set up a new place to live with Amanda? My phone continued to buzz with messages from Michael, alternating between apologies, explanations, and demands to know where I was. I finally texted back, "I'm safe, I need space. Do not try to find me." That night at Sophia's apartment, I lay awake in her guest room, unable to sleep despite my exhaustion. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Amanda's voice whispering those intimate details, saw Michael's face transform from guilt to anger, felt the ground shifting beneath my feet as 8 years of marriage revealed itself to be built on quicksand. My parents called around midnight, their sixth sense for when something was wrong with their only daughter apparently functioning across state lines. I had planned to put on a brave voice to tell them I was fine and would explain everything later, but the moment I heard my mother's concerned, "Eden, what's wrong?" I broke down again. Through tears, I told them everything. My father's anger was palpable even through the phone. I never trusted that entitled son of a bitch, while my mother remained practical. "First thing tomorrow, you need to go to the bank and separate your accounts," she advised, "and call a lawyer. Don't wait for Michael to make the first move." By morning, I had barely slept, but I had made a decision. I would not let Michael dictate the terms of whatever came next. I would protect myself and what was mine. As the first light of dawn filtered through the blinds, I felt a strange calm replace the chaotic emotions of the previous day. The worst had happened, and I had survived. Now it was time to figure out what came next. The next morning, Michael was waiting on Sophia's doorstep. When we returned from a meeting with my newly hired divorce attorney, he looked terrible. Unshaven, dark circles under his eyes, wearing the same clothes from yesterday. For a brief moment, I felt a twinge of sympathy quickly extinguished by the memory of Amanda's voice. "Eden, please," he said as soon as he saw me. "We need to talk." Sophia stepped between us protectively. "She doesn't want to talk to you right now, Michael." He ignored her, his eyes fixed on me. 5 minutes, that's all I'm asking." Against Sophia's objections, I agreed to speak with him. 5 minutes, I confirmed. "And we talk out here, not inside." Sophia reluctantly went inside, promising to call the police if she heard anything concerning. Michael and I sat on the steps of her brownstone, maintaining careful distance between us. "I'm sorry," he began, his voice rough with emotion. "What happened with Amanda was a mistake. It didn't mean anything. It was just physical, nothing like what we have." "Had," I corrected. "What we had." Michael winced. "Have, Eden. I love you. This doesn't have to be the end of us. People get through these things all the time." "Why?" I asked, genuinely curious. "Why did you do it? Was I not enough?" He ran a hand through his dishevelled hair. "It wasn't about you. I was weak, flattered by her attention. Things have been strained between us lately, and she was there showing interest in my work, laughing at my jokes. It started as innocent flirtation and escalated before I knew what was happening." "For 8 months, I challenged. "That's not a momentary weakness, Michael. That's a choice you made every day for almost a year." "I tried to end it several times," he claimed, "but she threatened to tell you to tell Wilson." I was trapped. I laughed bitterly. "So now you're the victim." Poor Michael, forced to sleep with his young, attractive co-worker for months on end. His expression hardened slightly. "I'm just trying to explain. I know what I did was wrong, but we can fix this. Go to counselling, rebuild the trust. I'll do whatever it takes." I was about to respond when my phone buzzed with a text. It was from an unknown number, but the message made it clear who it was from. "Eden, it's Amanda. There's something you need to know. I'm pregnant, and it's Michael's. I'm sorry to tell you like this, but he's been ignoring my calls since yesterday." I stared at the screen, feeling as if I'd been punched in the stomach. Without a word, I turned the phone so Michael could see the message. His face went pale. "She's lying," he said immediately. "She can't be pregnant. We always used protection. Always in 8 months of affairs, you never slipped up once." I stood up, needing to put distance between us. "Or is this another woman you're sleeping with that I don't know about?" "Eden, please," Michael begged, reaching for my hand. "She's making this up to cause problems. She was obsessed with me, talked about us having a future together. When I told her yesterday that it was over for good, she must have invented this pregnancy to try to hold on to me." His explanation sounded plausible, but I no longer knew what to believe. If he could lie convincingly about an 8-month affair, what else was he capable of lying about? "I need you to leave," I said firmly. "I can't do this right now." "What are you going to do?" he asked, an edge of panic in his voice. "I don't know," I admitted, "but I need to figure it out without you manipulating me." Michael's expression changed, a coldness entering his eyes that I had rarely seen before. "You should know I spoke with my father's attorney this morning. If you're thinking of divorce, it won't be as simple as you might hope." The gallery. The house, my family's money, is tied up in everything we have. I felt a chill at his thinly veiled threat. Are you threatening me? I'm being realistic, he countered. I don't want things to get ugly, but if you push for divorce, I'll have no choice but to protect myself. As he walked away, I realized that the man I had married, the man I thought I knew, was a stranger to me, and I had a sinking feeling that I was only beginning to discover the depths of his deception. Later that day, I decided to confront Amanda directly. I found the address of the architecture firm and waited outside until I saw her leaving the building. She looked startled when I approached, clutching her portfolio to her chest like a shield. Is it true? I asked without preamble. Are you pregnant? Amanda glanced around nervously before nodding. Yes. I took 3 tests to be sure. And it's Michael's? Yes, she said, meeting my eyes directly. I haven't been with anyone else. How far along? About 6 weeks, I think. I have a doctor's appointment next week to confirm. I studied her face, looking for signs of deception. He says you're lying to trap him. Amanda's expression hardened. Of course he does. He's been lying to both of us for months. What do you mean? She sighed, gesturing to a nearby cafe. Can we sit down? This isn't a conversation I want to have on the street. Over coffee that neither of us touched, Amanda revealed that her relationship with Michael went far beyond a physical affair. He had told her he was unhappy in his marriage, that we were sleeping in separate bedrooms and only staying together for appearances. He had promised to leave me after completing a major project that would secure his position at the firm. He told me he loved me, she said, her voice small, that he wanted a future with me. When did it start? I asked, needing to understand the timeline. Last summer at the firm retreat in the Berkshires. We were assigned to the same project team working late nights. One evening we were the last ones in the conference room and he kissed me. She looked down at her untouched coffee. I should have stopped it there. I knew he was married, but he was so convincing about how unhappy he was, how his marriage was essentially over. As proof, Amanda showed me text messages from Michael, discussing their future together, complaints about me, even photos of apartment listings he'd sent her, with messages like, "What do you think of this one for us?" The timestamps on some of these messages coincided with dates when Michael and I had gone to dinner or celebrated anniversaries, times when I thought we were reconnecting. By the time I left the cafe, I felt numb. Michael hadn't just betrayed me physically, he had systematically constructed an alternate reality where our marriage was already over, where I was the villain holding him back from happiness. The depth of his deception was staggering. The situation escalated further when Michael's family got involved. His mother called her usually crisp voice, dripping with false sympathy. "Eden, darling, these things happen in marriages. Men stray. God knows Richard had his indiscretions over the years." "You knew?" I asked, incredulous. "Not about this specific situation," she clarified, "but I'm a realist about marriage. Sometimes it's better to look the other way for the sake of family stability." "That's not the kind of marriage I want," I replied firmly. She sighed as if I was being particularly difficult. "Pride is a luxury, dear. Think carefully before you throw away everything you and Michael have built together." After that conversation, I scheduled another appointment with my attorney, determined to protect myself from Michael and his family's influence. The lawyer's advice was clear: document everything, secure my financial independence, and prepare for Michael to fight dirty. When Michael discovered I had consulted an attorney, his behaviour became increasingly erratic. He alternated between tearful apologies and cold threats. "You'll regret this," he warned during one particularly heated phone call. "By the time my lawyers are done with you, you'll be lucky if you can afford to rent a studio apartment. The gallery will be mine." His threat to take the gallery, my dream, my creation, was the final confirmation that the Michael I loved had never truly existed. The man behind the charm and the promises was someone capable of trying to destroy the thing I cared about most, simply because his ego was bruised. In that moment, I knew with absolute certainty that our marriage was over. The weeks following my discovery of Michael's affair were the darkest of my life. I temporarily moved in with Sophia, unable to face returning to the home I had shared with Michael. Each day brought new revelations about his deception, credit card statements showing lavish gifts for Amanda, emails discussing their future together, even evidence that he had been transferring money from our joint accounts to a private one for months. To make matters worse, Michael began a campaign to control the narrative among our friends. He told people I had experienced a mental breakdown, triggered by our fertility struggles, that I was imagining things and needed help. Some friends, particularly those closer to Michael's social circle, began to distance themselves, sending concerned messages that felt more like wellness checks than genuine support. "We're worried about you, Eden," one such message read. "Michael says you've been acting erratically. Do you need help finding a good therapist?" The betrayal cut deep. These were people who had dined in our home, celebrated our anniversaries, been part of our lives for years. Yet they so easily accepted Michael's version of events, without even asking for my side of the story. Sophia remained my rock throughout this period, offering her guest room indefinitely and fiercely defending me to anyone who questioned my mental state. If Eden's crazy for being upset that her husband was screwing his co-worker for 8 months, then we should all be committed, she told one mutual friend, who had reached out with concerns. Despite Sophia's support, my health began to suffer. I lost weight, unable to eat more than a few bites at each meal. Sleep became elusive, with nightmares jolting me awake when I did manage to drift off. My concentration suffered, making it difficult to focus on the gallery, which was already facing challenges due to my sporadic presence. Customers and artists noticed my distraction. Exhibitions that would have normally taken weeks of careful planning were thrown together hastily. Sales declined as I failed to connect with potential buyers in my usual enthusiastic way. The gallery, once my sanctuary, began to feel like another burden, another reminder of how thoroughly my life had unraveled. About a month after discovering Michael's affair, I collapsed at the gallery while setting up for a new exhibition. Sophia, who had stopped by to bring me lunch, found me unconscious on the floor and immediately called an ambulance. At the hospital, doctors diagnosed severe dehydration and exhaustion, but more tests were ordered when I mentioned my irregular periods and persistent nausea. The doctor returned to my room with an unexpected diagnosis. "Mrs. Harrington, you're approximately 6 weeks pregnant." The irony wasn't lost on me. After years of trying to conceive, I had finally become pregnant just as my marriage was ending. The emotions that washed over me were complex and contradictory. Joy at the life growing inside me, fear about facing parenthood alone, anger that this miracle had come at such a devastating time, and a tiny, unwelcome hope that perhaps this baby could somehow save my marriage. That hope was quickly extinguished when I called Michael from the hospital. His first response wasn't joy or even surprise, but suspicion. "Are you sure it's mine?" he asked coldly. His question felt like a slap. In 8 years of marriage, I had never given him any reason to doubt my fidelity. Yet his immediate reaction was to question the paternity of our child, perhaps projecting his own infidelity onto me. "Yes, Michael, it's yours," I replied, my voice steady despite the tears streaming down my face. "Unlike you, I haven't been sleeping with anyone else." His tone softened slightly. "I'm sorry. That was uncalled for. But you have to understand the timing is convenient." "Convenient," I echoed incredulously. "You think I plan to get pregnant in the middle of discovering your affair and our marriage falling apart?" "No, of course not," he backpedaled. "I just meant, this changes things, Eden. We should talk about what this means for us." But I was done talking. I hung up and turned off my phone, unable to bear any more of his manipulation. The pregnancy news, which should have been joyous, now felt like another complication in an already overwhelming situation. Released from the hospital the next day, I fell into a deep depression. I barely left Sophia's guest room, alternating between sleeping for extended periods and staring blankly at the ceiling. The gallery remained closed with a sign on the door citing family emergency. My phone filled with increasingly concerned messages from my parents, friends, and artists whose work was featured at Eden's Vision, but I couldn't bring myself to respond. My lowest point came when I discovered through social media that Michael had attended a charity gala with Amanda at his side, both of them smiling for the cameras as if they were a long-established couple rather than the product of deceit and betrayal. The photo posted by a mutual acquaintance who clearly had no idea of the situation showed Michael with his hand protectively placed on Amanda's still flat stomach, a public acknowledgement of her pregnancy, while mine remained his dirty secret. Seeing that image broke something in me. I spent the night sobbing, questioning every decision I had made over the past decade. Had I wasted the best years of my life on a man who had never truly loved me? Was I now facing single motherhood because I had been too blind to see the truth about my husband? What would become of the gallery, my dream that was now teetering on the edge of failure? The next morning, desperate for caffeine after another sleepless night, I ventured to a coffee shop a few blocks from Sophia's apartment. As I waited for my order, I heard someone call my name. Turning, I found myself face to face with Amanda. My first instinct was to leave to avoid the woman who had contributed to the destruction of my marriage. But something, perhaps exhaustion, perhaps curiosity, made me stay. Amanda looked different from our previous encounter. Tired, her usual polished appearance somewhat dimmed. "Can we talk?" she asked hesitantly. "Just for a few minutes." Against my better judgment, I nodded, and we found a quiet table in the corner of the cafe. For several moments, neither of us spoke, both staring at our respective cups, as if they contained the answers to our complicated situation. "I'm not pregnant," Amanda finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I never was." I looked up sharply. "What?" She couldn't meet my eyes. "I lied. I was desperate. When Michael ended things after you found out, I panicked. I thought if he believed I was carrying his child, he would choose me over you. It was wrong, and I'm so sorry." The admission stunned me. "Does Michael know?" Amanda nodded. "I told him yesterday. He was relieved, obviously, but also angry. He said he would have stood by me, done the right thing." "And you believe that?" I asked skeptically. She gave a bitter laugh. "No, not anymore. After I told him the truth, he said some things that made it clear I was never anything more than a convenience to him, an ego boost when he was feeling insecure, a distraction when he was bored." As we continued talking, Amanda revealed more about her relationship with Michael, how he had pursued her aggressively, making her feel special and chosen only to become controlling and critical once he had secured her affection. How he had made promises about their future together while taking steps to ensure those promises would be impossible to keep. How he had manipulated her insecurities just as he had manipulated mine. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," Amanda said as we prepared to leave. "What I did was unforgivable regardless of Michael's role in it, but I wanted you to know the truth. And I wanted to tell you that I admire your strength. Michael tried to make me believe you were fragile, unstable, but you're not. You're one of the strongest women I've ever met." Her words, surprisingly, were exactly what I needed to hear. As I walked back to Sophia's apartment, I felt something shift inside me. The fog of depression that had enveloped me began to lift, replaced by a clarity I hadn't experienced since finding out about Michael's betrayal. I was pregnant with a child I had wanted for years. I had a gallery that, while struggling, was still mine. I had true friends like Sophia who had stood by me at my worst, and most importantly, I had myself. Battered and bruised emotionally, but still standing. For the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. Not hope that Michael would change or that our marriage could be saved, but hope for a future that I would build on my own terms. I placed a protective hand on my still flat stomach and made a silent promise to my unborn child. We're going to be okay. Better than okay. We're going to thrive. Upon returning to Sophia's apartment after my unexpected encounter with Amanda, I made two important phone calls. The first was to my parents, informing them about the pregnancy and asking if they could come to Boston for a few weeks to help me get back on my feet. The second was to my attorney requesting an immediate appointment to discuss my next steps. "I'm done hiding," I told her when we met the following day. "I want to move back into my house, secure my gallery, and begin divorce proceedings officially." The attorney, Catherine Martinez, a formidable woman in her 50s with a reputation for handling high-profile divorces with discretion and fierce advocacy, nodded approvingly. "That's exactly what you should do. Abandoning the marital home could complicate property division later. And from what you've told me about Michael's threats regarding the gallery, we need to act quickly to protect your business interests." With Catherine's guidance, I followed a strategic plan. First, I returned to the brownstone, giving Michael advance notice that I would be moving back in and he should make arrangements to stay elsewhere. To my surprise, he didn't argue, agreeing to temporarily relocate to a corporate apartment owned by his firm. Next, I consulted with a forensic accountant recommended by Catherine. Together, we traced Michael's financial maneuvers over the past year, documenting his systematic effort to separate his assets from our marital property. We discovered he had been siphoning money into a private account, making large cash withdrawals, and transferring ownership of certain investments to his parents' names, all clear attempts to shield assets from potential division in a divorce. While the accountant worked on the financial investigation, my brother Ryan, a computer security expert, helped me recover deleted emails from our home computer. What we found was damning correspondence between Michael and his father discussing how to protect the family investments, from me messages to real estate agents about properties in Amanda's neighborhood, and drafts of post-nuptial agreements that would have severely limited my claims to our shared assets. Most disturbing were emails to his attorney from months before the affair was exposed, indicating that Michael had been planning an exit strategy from our marriage for over a year. "Need to ensure E has minimal claim to assets when separation occurs." One such email read, "Particularly concerned about gallery, technically joint investment, but cannot allow her to retain full control." Armed with this evidence, I confronted Michael during a meeting with both our attorneys present. Watching his composed facade crumble as Catherine methodically presented document after document proving his financial misconduct was both painful and vindicating. The man who had once seemed so confident, so in control, now looked cornered and desperate. "This doesn't look good for your client, counsellor," Catherine told Michael's attorney calmly. "Judges tend to frown upon systematic attempts to hide marital assets. If we were to present this evidence in court, Mr. Harrington could face significant penalties, not to mention the impact on his professional reputation." Michael's attorney, a colleague of his father's who had initially approached our divorce with arrogant dismissiveness, now looked concerned. "Perhaps we could discuss a more equitable settlement," he suggested. "Perhaps," Catherine agreed with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "But first, my client has some non-negotiable terms. Those terms included full ownership of the gallery, the brownstone, and a fair division of our other assets. Additionally, I wanted a clear acknowledgement that Michael's financial misconduct had occurred and appropriate compensation for his attempts to undermine my business." Michael, cornered by the evidence against him, initially tried to salvage his pride through anger. "This is blackmail," he snapped. "No," I replied calmly. "This is accountability." Over the following weeks, Michael's attitude shifted from defiance to desperate attempts at reconciliation. He sent flowers to the gallery, left voicemails filled with tearful apologies, and even attempted to use mutual friends to plead his case. "He's realised what he's lost," one such friend told me over coffee. "He says the affair with Amanda was the biggest mistake of his life." But it was too late. I had glimpsed the real Michael behind the charming facade, calculating, selfish, and willing to destroy what I loved most in order to punish me for his own mistakes. No amount of belated remorse could erase that knowledge or rebuild the trust that had been so thoroughly shattered. Instead of engaging with Michael's manipulation tactics, I focused on rebuilding my life. I reopened the gallery with a new exhibition featuring female artists, exploring themes of resilience and transformation. I redecorated the brownstone, removing or replacing items that triggered painful memories of my life with Michael. I started attending prenatal yoga classes and joined a support group for pregnant women navigating difficult life transitions. My parents arrived from Massachusetts, my father taking a sabbatical from teaching to help me through this period. Their presence was a balm, providing practical support and emotional stability during a time when both were in short supply. My father helped with gallery repairs I had been postponing, while my mother accompanied me to doctor's appointments and ensured I was eating properly for the baby's health. As my first trimester progressed, morning sickness and fatigue presented additional challenges, but they also grounded me in the physical reality of my pregnancy. Each wave of nausea, each flutter of movement I began to feel connected me to the future I was fighting for, not just my own, but my child's as well. The first ultrasound was a pivotal moment. Lying on the examination table, watching the grainy image of my baby appear on the screen, hearing the rapid whoosh whoosh of the heartbeat, I felt an overwhelming surge of love and protectiveness. This was real. This was happening. I was going to be a mother regardless of what happened with Michael and our divorce. I had chosen not to tell Michael about the appointment, needing this moment to be mine alone. But afterward, sitting in my car in the hospital parking lot, I texted him a copy of the ultrasound image with a simple message: "Your child, healthy, due date, February 15th. His response came quickly: "Can we talk, please?" For the first time in weeks, I agreed to meet with him without attorneys present. We chose neutral territory, a quiet bench in the public garden where the late summer flowers were beginning to give way to early autumn colours. Michael looked different, thinner with dark circles under his eyes and a subdued manner that contrasted sharply with his usual confident demeanour. When he saw me approach, his eyes immediately went to my midsection, where a small but distinctive bump was now visible beneath my loose dress. "You look beautiful," he said softly. "Thank you," I replied, sitting down and maintaining a careful distance between us. "What did you want to talk about?" Michael took a deep breath. "I've been doing a lot of thinking, a lot of soul-searching. I've started therapy, trying to understand why I did what I did, why I hurt the one person who always believed in me." I nodded, but said nothing, waiting for him to continue. "I know I've lost your trust, probably forever," he went on, "but our child deserves to have both parents in their life. I want to be a father, Eden. A good one, better than my own father was." "I would never keep you from your child," I assured him. "Whatever happens between us, this baby deserves to know their father." Relief washed over his face. "Thank you. And I want you to know that I've instructed my attorney to accept all your terms for the divorce. The gallery is yours, the house is yours. I'll pay whatever support you think is fair." His capitulation surprised me. Why the sudden change? Michael looked away, watching a young family pass by on the path in front of us. Seeing that ultrasound image made everything real in a way it wasn't before. This isn't just about us anymore, and I realized I don't want our child to grow up seeing me as the villain in your story. I want to at least try to be someone both of you can respect, even if you can't love me anymore. There was sincerity in his voice that I hadn't heard in a long time. Whether it would last remained to be seen, but for the moment, I chose to accept it at face value. "I appreciate that," I said finally, "and for what it's worth, I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for, Michael. I really do." As we parted ways, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The road ahead would not be easy. Single motherhood, rebuilding my business, learning to trust again. But for the first time since answering that fateful phone call, I felt truly free. Free from the lies, the manipulation, the constant doubt. Free to create a life on my own terms, guided by my own values, rather than someone else's expectations. Walking back to the brownstone that was now truly mine, one hand resting protectively on my growing belly, I made a silent promise to myself and my unborn child. We would not just survive this chapter of our lives, we would emerge from it stronger, wiser, and ready for whatever came next. 6 months after the phone call that changed everything, I stood in the newly renovated nursery of my brownstone, putting the finishing touches on the pale yellow walls. My pregnancy had progressed smoothly, and at 7 months my belly was proudly rounded beneath my paint-spattered overalls. The divorce had been finalised with surprising speed thanks to Michael's decision not to contest my terms. True to his word, he had surrendered any claim to the gallery, and the brownstone agreed to a fair division of our other assets and established a generous child support arrangement. Whether his cooperation stemmed from genuine remorse or a desire to protect his professional reputation remained unclear, but I chose to focus on the practical benefits rather than his motivations. In the months since our separation, I had thrown myself into rebuilding both my business and my sense of self. Eden's vision had undergone a renaissance with a new focus on highlighting artists whose work explored themes of transformation and resilience. The gallery's reputation had grown, attracting attention from major collectors and publications. A recent feature in Boston Magazine had called it a phoenix rising from the ashes, much like its owner. My personal transformation had been equally significant. The woman who had once diminished herself to accommodate her husband's ego was gone, replaced by someone who stood firmly in her own power. I had rediscovered passions I had set aside during my marriage: my love of photography, my interest in textile arts, my enjoyment of solo travel. I had even taken a weekend trip to New York at 6 months pregnant, attending gallery openings and connecting with artists I admired. My support network had evolved as well. Some friendships had withered in the aftermath of the divorce, particularly those with couples who had been closer to Michael than to me. But others had deepened, revealing their true strength during my darkest moments. Sophia remained my steadfast ally, now serving as the gallery's co-manager, an enthusiastic godmother-to-be for my child. New friendships had blossomed too. Through a prenatal yoga class, I had connected with Lucia, a single mother by choice, who was navigating her own pregnancy journey. Through a business networking group, I had met Diane, a divorce attorney who had survived her own painful split and now mentored women rebuilding their lives after betrayal. These women, who understood my experience from the inside out, had become invaluable sources of wisdom and support. My relationship with Michael had settled into a cautious civility. He had kept his promise to remain involved in the pregnancy, attending key doctor's appointments and helping prepare for the baby's arrival. His contrition appeared genuine, and he had maintained his commitment to therapy. When a routine ultrasound revealed we were having a daughter, I had seen tears in his eyes, the first authentic emotion I had witnessed from him in years. In late January, with my due date approaching, I had an unexpected visitor at the gallery. Amanda Winters, whom I hadn't seen since our coffee shop encounter months earlier, appeared during a quiet afternoon when I was alone reviewing new submissions. "I hope it's okay that I came," she said hesitantly, standing in the doorway. "I can leave if you'd rather not see me." Something in her demeanour, a vulnerability that hadn't been present during our previous meetings, made me gesture for her to enter. "It's fine. What can I do for you?" Amanda approached cautiously, her eyes taking in my advanced pregnancy. "I wanted to let you know I'm leaving Boston. I've accepted a position with a firm in Seattle starting next month." "Congratulations," I said, meaning it. "That sounds like a good opportunity." She nodded. "It is. But before I go, I wanted to apologize again face to face. What I did to you, to your marriage, there's no excuse. I got caught up in Michael's attention, his promises, and I chose to ignore the fact that he was someone's husband. Your husband." Her sincerity was evident, and I found myself responding with unexpected compassion. It takes two people to have an affair, Amanda. Michael made his choices too. More importantly, he made them repeatedly over months. He did, she agreed. But that doesn't absolve me of my responsibility. She hesitated, then added, I also wanted you to know that I've been seeing a therapist trying to understand why I was willing to be the other woman. I don't want to repeat those patterns. As we talked, I realized that Amanda, like me, had been manipulated by Michael's charm and calculation. While her actions were undeniably wrong, she too had been a victim of his deception, albeit in a different way. This realization didn't erase the pain she had caused, but it allowed me to view her with greater understanding. Before leaving, Amanda handed me a small gift bag. For the baby, she explained. No obligation to accept it, of course. Inside was a beautiful handcrafted mobile of origami birds in flight. The card read simply, May she always soar freely, wishing you both all the happiness you deserve. The gesture, unexpected and touching, seemed to close a chapter that had remained partially open. As I watched Amanda walk away, I felt the last vestiges of anger toward her dissolve, replaced by a hope that she would find a healthier path forward, just as I was doing. 2 weeks later, after a relatively smooth labour, I gave birth to Lily Grace Harrington, a healthy 7-pound baby with a full head of dark hair and her father's dimpled chin. Michael was present for the birth, standing respectfully at a distance. I had requested his face a mixture of awe and regret as he held his daughter for the first time. She's perfect, he whispered gently, touching Lily's tiny fingers. Thank you for letting me be here. As I watched them together, I felt a complex mixture of emotions. Sadness for the family we would never be, hope for the co-parenting relationship we might build, an overwhelming love for the tiny person who had already changed my world completely. The first few months of motherhood were a blur of sleepless nights, breastfeeding challenges, and moments of both overwhelming joy and bone-deep exhaustion. My parents stayed for 6 weeks, providing invaluable support as I adjusted to life with a newborn. Sophia organised a meal train among our friends, ensuring I had home-cooked food when cooking was the last thing on my mind. Michael visited regularly initially under my parents' watchful eyes, gradually earning trust as he proved himself to be a devoted, if somewhat anxious father. By Lily's 6-month birthday, celebrated with a small gathering in the Brownstones' garden, I had found my rhythm as a working mother. The gallery was thriving under a schedule that allowed me to bring Lily with me 3 days a week, while a part-time nanny covered the other 2 days. Michael took Lily every other weekend, his apartment now appropriately baby-proofed, and his bachelor lifestyle significantly tamed. Watching my daughter grow, witnessing her first smile, her first laugh, her first attempts to roll over, I often reflected on the strange path that had led to her existence. If I hadn't answered Michael's phone that morning, would I still be living in blissful ignorance, married to a man who didn't truly love or respect me? Would Lily even exist? These questions had no answers, but they no longer haunted me. Instead, I focused on the present, on building a life filled with authenticity, creativity, and love for my daughter and myself. The betrayal that had once seemed like the end of my world had ultimately been the catalyst for a new beginning, one far richer and more genuine than I could have imagined. On a warm spring evening, as Lily slept peacefully in her crib, I sat on the Brownstones' rooftop deck with a glass of wine, watching the sunset over Boston's skyline. My phone buzzed with a text from Dr. James Carlisle, a paediatric surgeon I had met at a hospital charity event where the gallery had donated pieces for auction. We had been cautiously dating for a few weeks, moving at a pace that respected both my status as a new mother and my lingering trust issues. Just checking in, his message read, "Hope you and Lily had a good day. Still on for Sunday brunch." I smiled, as I typed my reply, feeling a flutter of hope that had nothing to do with romantic fantasies and everything to do with the knowledge that I was approaching this relationship with clear eyes and strong boundaries. Whatever happened with James, whether it blossomed into something lasting or remained a pleasant chapter in my ongoing story, I knew I would be okay. The woman who had once been devastated by a phone call from her husband's mistress was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, wiser, and infinitely more self-assured. Someone who understood that while betrayal can break your heart, it doesn't have to break your spirit. Someone who had learned that sometimes the most painful endings lead to the most beautiful beginnings. As I watched the last rays of sunlight disappear beyond the horizon, I thought about the journey that had brought me here, from the shock and pain of discovery, through the darkness of grief and betrayal, to the dawn of a new life built on my own terms. It hadn't been easy, and there had been moments when I thought I wouldn't survive the pain, but I had, and in surviving, I had discovered a resilience I never knew I possessed. Have you ever experienced a betrayal that ultimately led to unexpected growth? How did you find the strength to rebuild your life? Share your story in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might be facing their own moment of painful truth. Remember, sometimes the most devastating phone calls can become the most liberating wake-up calls. Thank you for listening, and may you find the courage to embrace your own fresh starts, whatever form they may take.